Hi everyone, it's Microwave Sam. How are you doing? In this tutorial, I'll give a live demonstration of how to set up Node.js and Express.js. Now, if you don't know, Node.js, I'll read off the wiki page, open source cross-platform runtime environment for server-side and network applications. And people like Node.js because some people like it because it's in JavaScript, and some web developers are very in tune with JavaScript. And another reason is that it optimizes an application's throughput and scalability, meaning that it's pretty fast. And Express.js is basically a Node.js web application framework designed for building single-page, multi-page, and hybrid web applications. So back to the AWS website. Now you want to go to this link. I say this every time because I'm not really sure if this is your first tutorial with AWS. So you go to aws.amazon.com. If you don't have an account already, click this orange button, create a free account. And you should do so because you can get started with AWS for free. And there's a free tier, which is a year of micro instances. So, if you already do have an account, go sign in. Go underneath, sign in, and go to AWS Management Console. And sign in with your username and password. I'll just go ahead and sign in. Once I'm signed in, I always look at my location and make sure it is at the location that you live in. Since I live on the East Coast, I choose US East, North Virginia. You want to go over to the left side where you see EC2, Virtual Servers in the Cloud, and click on it. Once you are at the EC2 dashboard, you want to hit Running Instance. At this running instance, you can launch a new instance with this blue button. And it'll bring you to a series of steps to set up your Amazon EC2 instance. So I like to use Ubuntu free tier servers. Ubuntu, the latest version 14.04, and there's a free tier eligible. So I'll just select that 64-bit. And over here on the instance type, I always leave it by default free tier eligible. Micro instances are eligible for AWS free usage tier for the first 12 months following your AWS sign up. And I click next configure details. I leave the configure instance details by default and go to next add storage. And I also leave this by default. Then I go to tag instance and I'll leave this by default until I get to step 6, which is configure security group. Now in the security group, I like to create a new security group. And I'll call this security group name node in the description node. Now, some rules that you want to add is you want to add HTTP, oops, misclicked, HTTP. Then you want to add HTTPS. And then finally, you can add a port for 8080, which I'll do so because websites sometimes go with the port range of 8080. And finally, I want to add an extra rule for 9000 because I want to test that Node works with this 9000 port. So here are the 5 ports. 22 will be by default because that's for SSH. Then there will be 80, 443, 8080, and 9000. 80 is for HTTP. 443 is for HTTPS, and make sure that the source at the right side is anywhere. Then we can review and launch. Everything seems okay, so we'll launch it with this blue button at the bottom right. And we will choose a new key pair. Now these key pairs are basically a private key file used for SSH into our instance. We'll call this node, simple name. And you can only download this once, so make sure that you save it in a safe place. Just hit that download key pair, and I'll save it to my desktop. After saving, you can launch the instance. So, your instance is now launching at the top right. If we hit this cube, the orange cube, click on it, and we go back to EC2, and go back to running instance. You'll see that the instance state is pending and the status check is initializing. So we'll just wait until this finishes up. Usually this takes about 5 minutes, so I'll speed the video up and get back to you. Well, the EC2 instance is up, so we can proceed. Now, I'm using Windows and I have Cygwin, or Cygwin, whatever you can call it, in my system variables so that I have POSIX on my command prompt. So once you're on the command prompt, you want to maneuver to your, what's it called, the .pem key file, the private key file. So I'm going to do an ls. I always repeat these commands and what they do, and I'm sorry if you already gone through them, but if you don't know, ls is to list the directory. cd is to change directory, right? So I'm going to cd, change directory, into my desktop. Right over here, zoom in, cd desktop. Now I'm going to do ls again to list all the contents, and I know that I saved it in my desktop, so I don't need to do anything. I don't need to scroll up and kind of find for it. So I can do SSH. SSH is secure shell, secure like the connection. And then -i, the -i flag is to select a private key file. And I'm gonna select the what do I call it? Node.pem, right? You can always press tab to autocomplete the word. So there's node.pem, and then Ubuntu is the user because I'm using an Ubuntu EC2 instance, and well, it's at this public DNS or this public IP. So if you look at the bottom right, if you select your EC2 instance, then it displays the public DNS or public IP. You can copy these, or copy one of them. Go back to the terminal, right click, edit, paste. And then here's the command to SSH into an EC2 instance. You press enter, and yes, but it says unprotected private key file. Why is that? Because the permissions are too open. So to always check the permissions, you can do ls with the flag -l, like so. Then you press enter, and it shows all the permissions of all your files at that directory. Now if I scroll up, I'm gonna look at the node.pem file. Where is it? So at the end, node. Okay, it's right here, right? So here are the permissions: rwx, user group, rwx. Well, rwx is the owner, rwx is for the group, and -- nothing for what's it called, for everyone else. So we want this to only be manipulatable by the owner. So we want to change this rwx, but also there's a none group. We need to add a group to manipulate, to disable the group permission for this file. So first thing we want to do is we're going to change ownership. So I believe the command is chown, and it could be users, :users, and then the name of the file, node, and I'm just going to press tab to autocomplete. So chown, :users, node.pem. Okay, success. Now if we look at the permissions again by doing ls with the flag -l, then we see that I added the group called users. And now I'm going to change the permissions so that we have rwx for read, write, and executable. Actually, we just want it to be read, write, because that's really all we need. So read, write, and then everything else is going to be dashes or hyphens. So that command is chmod to change permissions, and the command I'm going to use is 600. And then I finish it off with node.pem. So if we do another -ls-l, then we see that the command, the permissions, is just rw with everything dash. So I can read write it, but no one else can. So if we press up on the D-pad to go to previous commands, we can find ssh-i again, which is the command that we typed in a couple lines ago. We just press enter, and we should get in. Easy as that. We're on the Ubuntu EC2 instance. Now, first thing I like to do is use sudo, the super user, and then I type in apt-get update. Now, this is gonna update, I guess, the links or repositories that the packages this EC2 instance on Ubuntu is getting. So if you type in this command and press enter, it will start just updating all the links. Make sure that it's the most up-to-date connection to those packages, and it reads the package list and done. So the next step, I always keep this notepad list of things to do because I'm not too familiar with Node, so I keep this little line of stuff. Second thing is to install the it's the G++ and the make, so that we can compile and make the Node package. So basically, we need these 3 packages over here to compile all of the material that we'll need for Node. So basically, you do another sudo apt-get install libssl-dev for the SSL library development, G++, and then the make. And then, after pressing enter, you can press yes to the prompt, and then installs everything. Now, while that's doing that, I'll just go to the Node.js website. So Node.js, gonna Google it, and Node.js is over here. The site is nodejs.org. I'll leave a link in the description, and we will get some downloads. So go to the download section. We want to get the source code, which is over here, and the packages are finally installed completely. Okay, once you're at the nodejs.org/download webpage, you can go down to source code, and it has this node-v and a bunch of numbers tar.gz file. And basically, what we're gonna do is we're gonna download it straight into our Ubuntu instance by doing copy link address. Right-click and copy the link address like so. Then go to your terminal. Then what you want to type in is wget, which is a command used to extract everything from a web page. Right-click, edit, and then paste. And with this command, you will download it to your Ubuntu instance. So you just press enter. It downloads after you can check by typing ls, then you can see it's in there. So to unzip this packed file, you want to type tar-xvf node whatever's after tab, and it auto completes, and you can extract unzip this file. Then you press enter, and it creates the directory for this new file. So press ls, and you see a new directory is created, which is right there. Then you can go into the directory. ls has a bunch of stuff in it, and to run this, what you want to do is you want to first of all /configure will run the binaries for this executable file. Then after that's done, you can specify 2 ampersands to say do this after, right? So after /configure is done, then make it, and then after that's done, you want to do a sudo make install that node package. So you just press enter with these commands, and it does everything for you to configure and install this. So this might take a while, so I'll speed it up and get back to you. Once Node finishes installing itself, now you'll be just at the directory, nothing special, everything's just installed. You want to change directory // to go to the directory before this one. Then you ls, and you see that there's just a folder, the same place that we were in like 5 minutes ago. You want to create a new directory by typing make directory or mkdir, and let's call this directory, which will be our workspace basically, test1. So you can change to that directory after you've made it. So cd test1. Then it's empty, right? Because we don't have anything in it. Now we're going to use a text editor called Vim. Vim is one of the popular text editors for POSIX, and we're going to call this file test1.js. So by using Vim and test1.js, we'll create the file at the same time. And we just press enter, and test1.js, new file. So to use Vim, if you're not familiar, I is to start editing this empty file. If you press I, you'll go into insert mode like you see at the bottom. And then you can start typing stuff inside. And to exit insert mode, you just press escape, which is usually at the top left of all keyboards, and then you'll exit it. Press I to go back to insert mode, and let us just type in our node instance initial setup. Here's a very skeleton code at the right side. I always forget these code, so I wrote it down right before I did this tutorial. So I'll type in var http because we're going to specify that require http. And then afterwards, we're going to write the port number, which is 9000. So port is 9000. Then we're going to create the server, http, which we're just using the variable at the top, and create server. We're going to put the function in, the request listen port, and we're going to listen at port 9000. I chose 9000 to listen to because I want to set up a test port to make sure everything's working, Node is working properly, before putting it to the regular port 80. So then we're going to type in writeHead, right? And we're going to specify the content type, which is text/plain. Then quote text/plain. And then we're going to write the end, which is just a little message that we're going to put in called hello world. And this /n, if you don't know, is just specifying a new line. So that should be it for the create server part. And then I always make sure that I'm listening to the log, which is always just good practice to just write some debugging lines. And I'm gonna listen. If it does work, if it's running, then it's gonna say listening on port 9000. And then to save this, you press escape to exit the insert mode, and then at the bottom you write :x. So just type in :x, which will write and save the file. So :x, and then press enter. So now if we press ls, we have this new test1.js. And then we're gonna boot this up by typing node test1.js, press enter, and it's going to listen on port 9000 like so. And if we go node.js, and if we go to our EC2 management console, click on our instance that we just created for this node instance. At the bottom right, you should see public DNS right over here underneath description. Copy this link, go to a new tab, paste it, and we don't see anything because we need to add and specify the port number that we want to go to. 80 is the port that you normally go to, but if you add a colon to the end of the link and type in a specific port number, like 9000 in this example, you'll go to that port number and whatever it's saying. So press enter, and it says hello world at the top left in this text plain format. So it's working. Nice. Normally when you have you're in your directory and you run node with your file, it just runs it, right? It's listening to port 9000. You can see it. If you refresh the page of your EC2 instance, it pops up in text plain language. But let's say if you need to go somewhere and you turn off your computer and you close out the terminal, what happens? Oh wait, it doesn't work because that command isn't running anymore. So we want to have a solution to solve that. So basically how we do that is, let me get back to my desktop and SSH again into the instance. Pen file Ubuntu at public DNS. Paste this and go in. So I'm back onto the instance, and if I maneuver to my way to test1.js, right, I want to have a command that runs this all the time, right? So you can do this with a simple background process by using this command over here. No hup, which means no hiccup, node test1.js, and then this ampersand symbol. This ampersand symbol means run it in the background, right? And the no hiccup is just for no hiccups. Basically, it's the literal term. So you press enter, and it just says ignore input and appending output to no-hup.out. Gives you a process ID, and you don't need to remember this, but basically, if we do Control C, ls, we can even remove that no-hup.out. Remove that, and then if we go back here, refresh it, it's working. Hello world. EC2 instance working on 9000. Let's just close the terminal just in case. Close the terminal and refresh the page a couple times. It's working still. Why? Because we set up a background process for Node, and now it's just running on the background. So let's just get back on to the site. Use that space Ubuntu at EC2 instance, and then we go back to what's it called, test 1. Now it's running in the background, but let's say if you want to stop it, right? You type in ps-ef, I think, and you can see all the background processes happening at the moment. Now we'll find our node test.js. So it's right over here, and at the left side it gives you the same ID, 27583, and you can kill it by typing kill 27583. And if you kill it, refresh the page, it's not working anymore. So that's how you get it automatically running. No hiccup is just an extra command in case, I believe, let me just check it no hiccup is a pause command to ignore the hup hang up signal. So sometimes there's a hang up signal, and the hup signal is convention, the way a terminal warns dependent processes of logout. And so I just do no hup to ignore that hang up signal, so it just runs always, ignores all the hang up signals and keeps on going. So that's how you get it automatically running. And now we're going to try to get this on port 80. But if we go to this JS file, I could easily change this variable port to port 80 so that every time I refresh the page, I don't need to put the port number. But when you have it at port 80, you need sudo, right? You need to be en route to run it. And that is, it's annoying for some reasons because you always need to type in the extra sudo, and if you're on a regular server you need to type in your password. So we'll show you this second way of doing this. So now we're gonna mess around with some Express. So first thing you want to do is, I am at this folder, the Ubuntu folder, and if you ever am unsure of where you are in the terminal, you can type pwd. It shows you where you are. So I'm in the home Ubuntu folder, and we are gonna get Express. We're gonna use the package npm, which is a node management, and then we're gonna install Express. Now Express is over here, and we can make a new directory called test2 to start using Express. So I just changed into that directory, and I'm going to use vim again to create a new file, test2.js, and I'm going to start using Express. So first thing is to type in some preliminary variables. We're going to require the Express package. Then we're going to call a variable to run Express function, apt-get. The syntax is slightly different from regular old Node.js. Slash distinguishes your directory area. So if you just go to a website, it will print out this message. But if we type in something like hi or hello, it will go, you will need to type that extra /hello to get to the page. So we will do that function request res parentheses res.send hello world and then close that off. And we are continuing to listen to a port. So we'll call it port 9000. And then we're gonna listen to this port. Console.log listening on port. And if we run this node.test2.js and go back to port 9000, it will run. Now the reason this whole time I've been using port 9000 is it's because if we want to use port 80, you will need to be en route to use port 80. So if we go back into the test2.js and we run it in port 80, just change this port to port 80 and save, like so. Then if you do node test2.js, it'll say, oh, you're unhandled error, listen access. So you need to do sudo node test2.js, and then it listens on port 80 because that's the default. Well, it's the port that if you go to a site and you don't put the colon, you don't specify port numbers, press enter, that's the port you go to. And then again, if we want this to automatically run, we can use the no hiccup command, or we can do a little sudo node test2.js and the ampersand symbol to make it a background process and always running. But we won't do that. Here's the last part. Now, maybe you don't want to use sudo to listen on port 80, and you don't want that background process running forever with this sudo command for security reasons. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to vim test2.js, change that port back to 9000, and then save that. And now we can use IP tables to reroute the port 9000 to also communicate on port 80. So this command, using IP tables, -a, we do some pre-routing, -t, do the nat, 0, -p, tcp, -d port, 80, -j, redirect this port 9000. Alright, so here's the full command, and I'll leave a link, I'll leave that in the description, of course. Then press enter on that. Now if we do a little node magic and run node test2.js, it's listening on port 9000 still. So let's first go to port 9000. Okay, you see it, right? Now let's erase the colon 9000. Press enter. Hey, it's up on our main site. Cool. Nice. Thanks, IP tables. So you see the link. It's on the main site, but it's also on port 9000. And now finally, to make the job done, Control-C to exit. I forgot to mention, Control-C is the command that I'm using to exit listening on port 9000 this whole time. That I haven't even explained it. Control-C, on Macs it would be Command-C. So you exit that. Now it's offline again, right? So basically, we're going to do that little address thing where we make it into a background process. So you can use no hiccup. But this time around, I'm going to do a little sudo node test2.js. I'm going to put an ampersand symbol at the end. Press enter. So it's listening on port 9000. And okay, so just listening on port 9000. It's running in the background. It always gives you the port ID over here, 27825, and you can even see in the background. Whoa! Why did the page load without me refreshing? That's the magic of Node. It's asynchronous. And that's the whole concept behind Node. So it's really great for that reason. You can do the command ps-ef, enter. You can see all the processes. Processes? No, it's processes, yeah. Just had, and you can see the ID number 27825. Actually, I have two instances of this. One of Node, and then one of sudo. So you can end both of these by just doing pkill, or I think it's just kill. Yeah, it's kill. And then you can end it by their ID numbers. So I'll just end one of them. Let's see what happens. Kill. Yes. I need a sudo to kill stuff. Okay. And then if you refresh it, it stops running. If you go back to ps-ef, which shows the list of background processes, it's not there anymore. So I'm just gonna keep this up, go back to these commands, and then run it again, and refresh. Now it's on both ports again. So that's the whole concept of Node. If I close out my terminal, which I'm gonna do, and I refresh, hey, it's still up, it's online, everything's working. So that's my intro tutorial to Node. Thanks for watching. Hopefully I didn't mess up too much, and hopefully it helped you.